Is this a make it or break it year for Chaim Bloom, and should the Red Sox extend Alex Verdugo?
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast. And thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski. And I want to start off talking a little bit about Chaim Bloom, the chief baseball officer for the Red Sox, makes all the front office decisions, and has gotten a lot of flack over the last few years, not only with how the Mookie Betts trade is ending up, with the last place finish of 2022, how he's focused more on the farm system rather than building a winning team for the major league roster. And he's also going into his fourth year with the team. And from what we've seen of guys like Ben Cherington, Dave Dombrowski, they had 4 years to show what they could do with the Red Sox roster and the direction of the team. And then if the owners weren't happy, they'd get let go. And that's sort of what happened with Cherington, with Dave Dombrowski. And Bloom was sort of brought in to sort of change the mold, have a little bit of a long-term outlook on the team, focus more on building up the farm system. And sort of like he's said since he joined the team in 2019, build a sustainable winner through, not only building up that system, but also being able to bring in quality MLB talent to be, consistently winning year in and year out. And we saw last year that didn't work out too well. 2021 was a different story. The Sox were able to obviously get within 2 games of getting to the World Series, really defied all odds. And then 2020, I don't really count that. With Bloom not only coming in 2019, the pandemic, the whole Cora situation, having to trade Mookie Betts, and also who knows early on how much control he really had of being able to construct the roster. But now that he's going into this next season, you know, Lauren and I have spoken about this, not only during the end of last season, but also throughout this offseason, how important this year was for Chaim Bloom to show what he can really do to build up this team, not only for 2023, but also for the future as well. And if this could be a make it or break it season for Chaim Bloom. Well, Sam Kennedy was asked this on Monday in a presser, and he essentially said it straight. He's sort of silenced all the people that were wondering if this was a make it or break it year, or if they were planning on potentially firing Chaim Bloom after this season if things didn't end up going well. He said, Chaim is our chief baseball officer, and we don't anticipate any changes. And then John Henry also said 2 days ago, we are confident in this group. We are confident in Chaim. We are confident in the general manager, Brian O'Halloran. And Kennedy also mentioned as well, the expectations from our fan base are high, and they should be high. We have no expectations. We have all the resources. So pretty much set the record straight. They anticipate Chaim Bloom to be with the organization after this season, no matter what really happens. Now, this offseason probably didn't go anywhere close to what this front office sort of planned at the going into this one. Obviously, Bogart's departing, the starting pitching market really depleting very quickly, and maybe they didn't get as many things done as they really wanted to. But I'm very curious to see sort of how everything plays out throughout this year. And if the moves that Chaim Bloom made are really going to do as well as maybe he thinks. And maybe the Red Sox will sort of be like a 2013 or 2021, like, we've compared multiple times on this podcast, that they could defy the odds. They could do a lot better than most people expect. And I think the one thing that, we've seen Chaim Bloom really learn from over the last year or so is building up that depth, getting as much depth as possible, because it's so important, especially with you have no clue what things are really going to happen throughout the season in terms of injuries. Obviously, the COVID outbreaks 2 years ago. And I think that, he's really grown a lot in terms of the moves that he's made, his ability to speak with the media, his ability to be upfront with the fan base as well. He's gotten a lot of flack, which understandably, Red Sox fans, even myself, are very hard on the front office and just the team in general, wanting winning each and every single year. And, I'm somebody who, when Bloom was first hired, I said day in and day out, and Chaim we trust. I thought, he was a genius, one of the smartest guys in baseball coming over from the Rays. Anything that he did, was just a great move, and he could do no wrong. But, I've said, multiple times over the last year or so, my viewpoint on Chaim Bloom has drastically changed. I'm a lot more realistic in terms of the moves that he makes and my opinions on the different decisions that he has made over the last year or so. And I'm very honest as well about how I feel. And, I think, especially with how he's built up this team, we've said it time and time again, a lot of what ifs, a lot of potential, but it all needs to play out. And I think he's done a great job of, sort of changing the tides in terms of the clubhouse sort of vibe, the energy, being able to get more swagger and, clubhouse focused players rather than just solely focusing on the talent out there. Now, the one thing that, I will knock him for is he's still getting a lot of guys from the Tampa Bay Rays or who used to play for the Tampa Bay Rays. I would love to see him expand his net a little bit more. And I think, he needs to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of uh, offering free agents or different guys on the current roster long-term contracts and being flexible with spending money. Did a little bit more this season than he has obviously in the past. Prior to this past season, Kike Hernandez 2-year, $14 million contract was the most amount of money they spent. Obviously, the Trevor Story was a big investment. The Rafael Devers extension was a big investment. But not to say that I want him to get to the 11 years, 290 for Bogarts, but he should have been more aggressive. He should have had offered a little bit more of a competitive offer. We've talked about this a ton with Bogarts, but that's just an example. And I think especially if fans, expect him to build up a winner for years to come, and if he wants to build a winner to come, he needs to be more aggressive with his different moves and be more flexible in terms of spending money. Because Kennedy said it best: they have the resources. The Sox have the resources, so there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You got to spend money in order to win. Like, I get the smart decision and everything like that, but there's times where I'm like, Chaim, stop dumpster diving. Just go and make the moves so then this team can win right here and now. And I think that this season is really important for Chaim Bloom in terms of winning the fans' trust back. He had a lot of people rooting for him in 2021. He helped a lot of haters really change their opinions on him and be more optimistic about the moves that he had made. And that's what comes with winning. When a team who nobody expected to get anywhere close to the playoffs, just steamrolls through the Yankees in the wild card game, steamrolls the Rays in the ALDS, and really surprises everybody, not only in the league, but just within the fan base. You look like a genius. And then when you follow it up with the 2022 season, it's tough to, change your opinion about the guy who put this all together. And especially, now what happened with this past offseason, he just hasn't gotten a lot of moves that have really excited fans. So I hope, he's able to, build up the trust a little bit more. I hope, obviously, this team is able to perform a lot better than most people expect or what it looks like right now on paper. But I think, from what we hear from the front office, Sam Kennedy, the owners like John Henry, Tom Warner, they trust Chaim Bloom. They brought him in for a specific reason. And I think, they'll give him, 5 to 6 years. But I think, especially with, some of the trades that he's made, he needs to do a lot better on those. He came in as a prospect encyclopedia or wizard, just being able to make these incredible trays that looked like an absolute steal over in Tampa. Had a few of those, Nick Pivetta coming over, but the Benintendi deal looks awful. The Mookie Betts deal looks awful. And obviously the Garrett Whitlocks worked. The different prospects that he's brought over, and Manuel Valdez, we'll see. But he just needs to be a lot more consistent with some of the moves that he makes in order to be able to build the trust up of fans that we feel like he knows what he's doing. And we're going to be excited going into the season that, maybe these guys might surprise us. But especially with the taste that fans have of Chaim Bloom in their current mouth, it's not great. It's pretty sour. It's gross, and he needs to be able to spice it up a little bit. Maybe put some spices on there. Maybe do some different things to it. Maybe fry it a little bit to where fans will think it tastes a lot better. And that comes with winning. That comes with making your decisions look good through good play on the field. And I think that overall, this is a make it or break it season for Chaim Bloom in terms of just gaining the trust of fans and having the confidence of fans. But in general, like I said, the words speak for itself. The front office, the owners, they believe in Chaim Bloom, the direction that he's bringing them in. But I think at the end of the day, it's just continuing to gain the trust of the overall fan base. And I decided to ask you guys on Twitter if this is a make it or break it season for Chaim Bloom. And we got Wendy's.com. He ended up saying right now he is on the same path as Cherington. First season, wash wasn't their fault. Second, unexpected playoff run. Third, disappointing last place finish. And fourth, Cherington got the can in August. He said, I think it's fair to say it's make it or break. Then we got Ken Matthias. He said management and ownership might think otherwise, but us, the people, know with the little moves they made in the offseason, it better be a good start to the year and lead to the postseason. And that's sort of what every single year Red Sox fans have expectations for. We all want winning, especially with, people like myself. I'm 24. That's all I've seen is winning. And so having a season like last year where it was just unwatchable, it's tough to really have confidence going into the season and have excitement about this team. But especially with everything happening with spring training and just, my overall love and passion for baseball, as I bet, most of you who are listening to this podcast have, you're just excited for baseball to be back. But, will the Red Sox go out and win the World Series? I can't confidently say that. I bet you can't either. We got Tristan Cassis and Joyer. He said yes. Then we got Jill. She said, let's hope so. There are definitely some fans out there that don't want to see Chaim Bloom here anymore. Anytime, I go on to like a Red Sox live stream or whatever it is, just a regular like post talking about the Sox, there's so many fire Bloom, get him out of here. And makes sense. He hasn't really done a lot to get fans excited or confident that he is the right guy to help this team win another World Series. Hopefully he can change that this season. All you can do is hope and be optimistic. Then we got National Goalie Hug Association. According to the fans, yes. In reality, no. I agree with that. And then New York Patriot, he said nope. So, we got some mixed reactions there, but, kind of like I said, we'll wrap the bow in this. At the end of the day, I think in the eyes of the front office, he's going to stay for another few years. In the eyes of the fans, he just needs to build up that trust in terms of just wins. And that's really it. And I also wanted to mention, in terms of Brian Bayo, we spoke about his injury in yesterday's episode. And according to Jen McCaffrey, she said Bayo was throwing a little bit at a shorter distance than others as he continues to build up on Monday when he was scheduled to come back after his forearm tightness. And McCaffrey also said after a brief chat with Bush and the trainers, Bayo is staying to do PFPs with the rest of the group, and the trainers are headed to the other field. So that seems like a good sign. And especially when I saw her tweet earlier today that he was throwing, he was out there, ended up, continuing to try and build up back to where he was before. That's a good sign in general. We were a little bit nervous yesterday speaking about, could this be Tommy John surgery? Is this serious than maybe we think? Luckily, Doesn't look like that. So, continue to knock on wood, continue to do your prayers, continue to light your candles, continue to do, whatever good luck stuff that you got to do. We got to make sure Brian Bayo is healthy for this season, and, hopefully he can stay like that. So then, the Red Sox have a better chance to help you win some money if you bet on them this season. But I just wanted to take a second to talk to you about FanDuel before we get into our next segment, talking about Alex Verdugo's potential contract extension. And with the midway point of the NBA season here and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from money line to point scores and threes drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to fanduel.com/lockedon. That's fanduel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So one player that Bloom ended up bringing over, and Alex Verdugo from the Mookie Betts trade, has a really big season ahead of him. Really career defining, in my opinion, sort of season. We've seen since he came over from the Red Sox in 2020 was essentially the only bright spot during the 2020 COVID season. And then 2021 ended up, getting a little bit better. And then last year was a little bit of a dip down. And, a lot of fans were expecting Verdugo to take a massive step last year, and especially now that it's going into, year 3, year 4 of his time in Boston, and also his time in the majors. He really needs to show this team that he is what they traded for, and that he is going to be a consistent major leaguer that is going to be able to produce to this team, not only with his energy and his clubhouse presence, which all fans love, but also with his play, and that he's going to be able to produce at a high level and be able to really help the team offensively, but also defensively as well. And it was reported today by Gabrielle Starr from the Boston Herald, good friend of the podcast, that Alex Verdugo approached the Red Sox about an extension. And he told team's leadership and made it clear that he wants to stay with the Boston Red Sox. And, this is something that, he brought up last year in a press conference after the game when he was asked about, how he's really enjoyed the transition to Boston, playing for the Sox. And he sort of alluded to the same exact thing. He said, I want to stay with Boston for the rest of my career. And as somebody who's been a fan of him ever since he came over to the squad, I would love to see that. But at the same time, I also want to be able to see him take a little bit of a step up this year. And there's two ways that, this could really go. They offer him a deal and it ends up, really looking bad throughout the first season if he really underachieves this year. Or, if they don't offer him a deal during the beginning of the season and he ends up overachieving and, having the best year of his career, then the price just skyrockets. Then you just shot yourself in the foot. And so, I'm curious to see how they really go about this, if they try and be conservative with him and offer him a fair deal before the season starts just to get it done, just to get him under contract. But, it's not something that they really need to rush either as well. He's got 2 years left on his deal. So it's good to, look forward. And, that's one thing that I, talked about in our first segment. I would love to see more extensions with, guys like Verdugo, Casas, Bayo, sort of be able to help build up the future core of this team so fans can continue to get excited about the future teams and not sort of be in the same situation when, like, we were like last year where there was tons of guys who were going to be free agents. You had no clue what the depth chart was going to look like. And you're just thinking, what is there to be excited about? Who's even going to be on the team next year? And, that also helps out guys as well, I feel like, who are going to be traded over, signed in free agency to feel like they're going to be with the same core year in and year out. That helps guys feel comfortable in the clubhouse. So it's not like turnover each year. So I think with Verdugo, the one thing that really hurt him last year was, according to his brother, he fractured his toe for the first 2 months of the season. I think that really hurt his production, especially early on. We saw in the first 46 days from opening day through May 31st, he only hit 227 with 3 home runs and 24 RBIs. And especially with his swing, the way that he sort of loads from tapping his front foot, especially if it was his front foot. It's tough to be able to get power and to be able to have comfortability within your swing, especially if your toe is fractured, if it hurts anytime, you load up or anytime you're up a bat, and especially being able to run the outfield. I can't imagine that that's easy whatsoever. But, then we saw from June 1st through the last game of the season on October 5th, Verdugo ended up hitting 302 with 38 extra base hits and 8 home runs. Seemed like a completely different player. Was one of the most effective guys in the Red Sox lineup after that time. So curious to see if, he was not only able to nurse that toe, able to, be able to heal it up to where it felt comfortable, where he was able to play consistently without, feeling hurt or anything like that. But I'm curious to see what a full strength Alex Verdugo looks like, especially with how he came into camp this past week. Sort of looked like he was in the best shape of his life. That's sort of everything that I've been hearing coming out of Red Sox spring training. Is Alex Verdugo is coming in with a new mindset. Really took seriously what Alex Cora said at the end of the year, that Verdugo really needs to take a big step. Seems like he was really able to use that criticism from Cora to motivate him to put a lot of focus in becoming a lot better player throughout this offseason. Also, according to his brother, he said he was working out at a speed and agility center in Rancho. He looks lean, working on becoming quicker and putting more focus on athletic movements in his lifting routines. And one thing that we've heard from Alex Cora as well as Chaim Bloom is that they're looking for Verdugo to focus more on getting on base rather than hitting home runs. Sort of what we saw with Andrew Benintendi during his second or third year with the team. He really tried to bulk up, hit a lot of home runs. That ended up really hurting his swing and his offensive approach, ended up obviously hurting his overall numbers at the end of the season. I think that's sort of what happened with Verdugo last year. He really wanted to build up, add more power to his game. Didn't end up working out, ended up causing, in my opinion, more injuries and less offensive production than he obviously anticipated. So hoping to see what a more quicker and lean Alex Verdugo looks like if he's able to get on base more consistently, if he's able to have the best season of his career like his brother has talked about, and as most are predicting and hoping for, especially with how he showed up so far in spring training. But all the best for Alex Verdugo. I'm excited to see sort of how he's able to bounce back after a tough year last year. But also asked you guys on Twitter about a Verdugo potential extension. And in my mind, I think that 4 years, 45 to 50 mil is fair. I don't feel super comfortable going over 4 years. In my mind, 3 to 4 years is understandable, especially not knowing exactly what you have in him yet. I don't think he's given you the best season of his career yet. I don't think he's shown you fully what he can do. And so being able to have a little bit more clarity on the player that you're going to be able to get long-term in Alex Verdugo, I think is very necessary when you're signing a contract like that or putting forward that amount of money for a player like that. But I think around $10 to $12 million a year, at least for the value that he has right now, is right in the ballpark. And we had Brandon Youngblood. He said he's going to get under what Benny got on the open market. I'm sure 5 years, 60 to 70 million. I bet. Very curious to see how his performance this year really either helps his value get even higher, or maybe the Red Sox are able to get a discount, or maybe after this season as well, they just think maybe we just need to move on from Verdugo, and we just end up trading him. Because that was one thing that we heard about throughout the season is, could Alex Verdugo be traded? He was one of the guys that was brought up multiple times as a potential trade candidate. So curious to see how the contract extensions really materially throughout spring training. We've seen some guys not like to talk about extensions during spring training and before the season, but we've also seen other guys on the Atlanta Braves and other guys over the last year or so sign those extensions in the middle of the season. So very curious to see what happens with that. Obviously, we'll keep you updated with everything that we hear on this podcast, but before we get into our third and final segment, I just want to take a second to talk to you about Built Bar. So if you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know one of my goals is eating a little bit healthier this year. If you're like me, where you want to eat healthier, but you don't want to compromise the taste, then man, you have to try Built Bar. They are covered in 100% real chocolate, and it's incredible with how not only good they taste, but how good they are for you. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And one thing that always surprises me anytime I eat them is that they have 17 grams of protein, only 130 calories, and 4 grams of sugar. They honestly taste like a candy bar. It's pretty incredible. And now you don't have to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at built.com. And now you can just go get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4 box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. So make sure to go and get your Built Bars at built.com, or also, like I mentioned, at your local Sam's Club or your Walmart. But as we go into our third and final segment of this episode, I just want to touch on one thing that Alex Cora spoke about in his press conference earlier yesterday. He says that a lot of the non-roster invitees will likely pitch the first few games, and says that Kluber is scheduled to be the first of the major league starters to start a game, which will be next Monday. So very curious to see not only the lineup that Alex Cora puts out, and also how the non-roster invitees are able to perform in the first few spring training games. Obviously, these games don't matter. It's sort of like a tryout for a lot of these players. We haven't seen, you know, these spring training games really mean a lot for a lot of the players who are already obviously cemented or thought of to be on the 26-man roster. But crazier things have happened. We saw Cutter Crawford find a way to sneak onto the major league roster, opening day roster, after he pitched great throughout spring training and really impressed the coaches last year. So curious to see if any pitchers are really able to do that throughout this spring training and find a way to impress those different coaches or decision makers. And I'm also excited to see what Corey Kluber is able to bring. Obviously, has a lot of expectations on him going into this season, looked at as, the number 2, number 3 in this rotation. And I'm very also curious to see how they build up these players. A guy like Garrett Whitlock or Tanner Houck, who are expected, James Paxton as well, who are expected to maybe be starters, maybe be long relievers. Obviously, Whitlock has already been cemented in the rotation, but, Houck and Paxton, how are they really going to pitch those guys throughout spring training? How are they going to help them be able to build up in case they do want them to start in the rotation at some point throughout the season? But, as Lauren and I said, yesterday, this is what spring training is all about, over analyzing all the different storylines that come out each and every single day, and trying to, figure out and get into Alex Cora and Chaim Bloom's mind and predict and guess on not only what the opening day roster looks like, but how the season might end up working out. But at the end of the day, I know everybody who's listening to this podcast is probably as excited as I am for this season to start. And just that baseball is back. Just, that we're seeing the things on Twitter, being able to see all these new signings get in action and start to mold together and build up this hopefully next great Red Sox team that we talk about for years to come. That's the goal. All you can really do is be optimistic and try and get excited about this season, even though it might not, look super duper exciting. But as always, we're going to keep you knowledgeable and updated about everything that is happening with the Boston Red Sox leading up to the season. We're going to be posting 5 days a week, so make sure to subscribe on whatever audio platform that you're listening to or over on YouTube. And we also want to thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. So make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Also, make sure to follow Locked On Red Sox on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Myself, it's at Jake Iggy. And also, my co-host Lauren is 3 Laws, Lauren with 4 R's. We hope everybody has a great rest of their day, and we'll end it how we always end it. Keep the faith and let's go Sox.